The invitation had been sitting on Sofia Bennett's kitchen counter for 3 weeks, the embossed gold lettering catching the light every time she walked past it. And she still had not decided whether attending her 10-year high school reunion was the stupidest or bravest thing she could do this Saturday night. She picked up the heavy cardstock again, running her thumb over the raised text that promised cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, and reconnecting with old friends at the Riverside Grand Hotel. What it did not promise was protection from awkward small talk, forced smiles, or the inevitable questions about why she was still single at 28. Sofia set the invitation down and walked to her bedroom, where her laptop sat open on the unmade bed. She had 3 freelance articles due by Monday, a mountain of research notes scattered across her desk, and absolutely no reason to waste an entire evening pretending to care about people she had not spoken to in a decade, except for one person. Kyle Kensington had been her first everything. First kiss behind the bleachers during sophomore year. First boyfriend. First heartbreak when he moved across the country the summer before senior year, leaving her with promises that distance would not change anything between them. It had, of course. They tried the long-distance thing for exactly 4 months before the calls became less frequent, the texts more strained, and eventually they just stopped reaching out altogether. Sofia had thrown herself into journalism club, college applications, and convincing herself she was completely over him. She was not over him. Even now, sitting cross-legged on her bed in sweatpants and an oversized college hoodie, she could remember exactly how his laugh sounded, how his hand felt wrapped around hers, how he used to look at her like she was the only person in the entire world who mattered. The rational part of her brain knew that was just teenage nostalgia talking, that people changed, that she had built up a relationship in her memory that probably had not been half as magical as she remembered. The irrational part of her brain wondered if he would be there Saturday night. Sofia grabbed her phone and pulled up Facebook for the 100th time that week. Kyle's profile was still set to private, his profile picture a distant shot of someone who might have been him standing on a mountain summit. No location listed. No recent posts visible. She had sent him a friend request 2 years ago that remained unanswered, which should have told her everything she needed to know about his interest in reconnecting. "This is pathetic," she said aloud to her empty apartment. Her cat, Hemingway, lifted his orange head from where he was sprawled across her pillow and gave her a look that clearly communicated agreement. Sofia closed the laptop with more force than necessary. She would go to the reunion. She would wear the navy blue dress currently hanging in her closet with the tag still on, the one she bought on impulse 3 weeks ago specifically for this event. She would have exactly 2 glasses of wine, make polite conversation with whoever was there, and prove to herself that she was a successful, confident woman who did not need validation from her past. And if Kyle happened to be there, she would be casual and friendly and completely unbothered by his presence. Saturday evening arrived with unseasonably warm weather, and a knot of anxiety in Sofia's stomach that no amount of deep breathing could untangle. She arrived at the Riverside Grand Hotel 15 minutes late, which felt like the perfect balance between fashionably tardy and not making a dramatic entrance. The ballroom had been decorated with silver and gold balloons, round tables covered in white linens, and a banner proclaiming "Welcome Back Class of 2016" stretched across the far wall. The room was already half full of people Sofia vaguely recognized, most having changed just enough that she had to squint at their name tags to place them. She spotted Jessica Martinez near the bar, still gorgeous with the same long dark hair and confident posture that had made her homecoming queen. Brad Thompson stood in a corner looking significantly balder than his senior yearbook photo. Amy Chen was laughing at something someone said, her hand resting on her very pregnant belly. Sofia accepted a glass of white wine from the bartender and plastered on what she hoped was an approachable smile. Within minutes, she was pulled into a conversation with 3 women from her English class, all of whom seemed genuinely happy to see her. They talked about jobs and relationships, and the absolutely insane cost of rent these days. Sofia relaxed incrementally, letting herself enjoy the nostalgia of inside jokes about terrible cafeteria food and that one history teacher who definitely had a toupee. She had almost convinced herself this was enough, that she did not need Kyle to show up for the evening to feel complete when she saw him. He stood near the entrance, and Sofia's breath caught in her throat because somehow in 10 years, Kyle Kensington had transformed from cute teenage boyfriend into something else entirely. He was taller than she remembered, broader in the shoulders, wearing a charcoal gray suit that looked expensive and fit him perfectly. His dark hair was shorter now, styled with the kind of casual precision that probably required a $100 haircut. He had grown into his features, his jaw more defined, his presence commanding in a way that made several people turn to look as he entered. But it was his eyes that made Sofia's heart lurch uncomfortably in her chest. Even from across the room, she could see they were the same warm brown she remembered, the ones that used to look at her with such unguarded affection it made her feel like she was falling and flying at the same time. Holy shit, is that Kyle Kensington? Jessica had appeared at Sofia's elbow, following her gaze. I heard he started some kind of company out west. Apparently it is doing incredibly well. What kind of company? Sofia managed to ask, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. Something with renewable energy, I think. I do not really understand it, but my cousin works in that industry, and apparently Kyle's name comes up a lot. Like lot. Jessica lowered her voice conspiratorially. Rumor has it he is worth an absolute fortune now. We are talking private jet, multiple homes, serious wealth. Sofia felt her stomach drop. Of course Kyle had become wildly successful. Of course he was now some brilliant entrepreneur while she was scraping by on freelance article payments and trying to build a career that felt perpetually one step away from really taking off. The universe had a sick sense of humor. He looks good, Jessica continued, and Sofia wanted to argue, but the words died in her throat because it was objectively true. Kyle looked better than good. He looked like he had walked out of a magazine spread about successful young CEOs living their best lives. I need another drink, Sofia muttered, turning toward the bar before she could do something stupid like make eye contact with him. She made it exactly 4 steps before a hand touched her elbow, gentle but deliberate, and a familiar voice said, "Sofia." She turned slowly, and suddenly Kyle was right there, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something cedar and citrus that definitely had not existed in their high school days. Up close, he was almost overwhelming, and Sofia had to remind herself to breathe normally. "Kyle, hi." Her voice came out steadier than she expected, which felt like a small victory. "I was not sure you would be here." His face broke into a smile, and it was so genuinely warm that something inside Sofia's chest cracked open. "I almost did not come. I am only in town for a few days, and my schedule is insane right now. But I thought, when am I going to get another chance to see everyone from high school?" Everyone, Sofia thought. Not me specifically, just everyone. "It is good to see you," she said, and meant it despite the complicated tangle of emotions currently trying to strangle her from the inside. "I heard you are doing really well. Something with renewable energy." Kyle rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture so achingly familiar that Sofia had to look away for a moment. Yeah, I started a solar energy company about 5 years ago. We have been lucky with some patents and contracts. It has grown faster than I ever expected. Lucky, Sophia thought. He was being modest. You did not become rumored to have a private jet wealthy through luck alone. That is amazing, Kyle, really. I always knew you would do something incredible. She paused, then added, You were always the smartest person I knew. Something shifted in his expression, became more serious. Sophia, I wanted to reach out so many times over the years. After we lost touch, I always wondered. Sofia Bennett. A loud voice interrupted, and suddenly Brad Thompson was there, throwing an arm around her shoulders with the casual presumption of someone who had definitely already had more than 2 drinks. I was hoping you would show up. Remember that time in chemistry when we accidentally set the lab table on fire? Sophia did not remember that, probably because it had not happened. But Brad was already launching into an elaborate story that required her attention. She glanced at Kyle apologetically, but he had been pulled away by another group of former classmates eager to talk to him. She watched him go, surrounded by people wanting his attention, and felt the opportunity to have a real conversation slip away. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of small talk and catching up. Sophia found herself actually enjoying some of the conversations, reconnecting with people she had forgotten she liked. But her awareness of Kyle's presence in the room never fully faded. She caught glimpses of him throughout the night, always surrounded by people, always looking perfectly comfortable and engaged. He did not seek her out again, and she told herself she was not disappointed by this obvious fact. By 10 o'clock, Sophia had finished her second glass of wine and was considering calling a rideshare when Kyle appeared at her side again, this time without an audience. "Are you leaving?" he asked. "I think so. I have work tomorrow and I am not 21 anymore, past my bedtime." She tried to make it sound light, joking. "Can I walk you out?" Sophia's heart jumped. "Sure." They walked through the hotel lobby in comfortable silence, and Sophia was acutely aware of how close he was, how easily they fell into step with each other like no time had passed at all. Outside, the night air was warm and smelled like the river that ran behind the hotel. "I am parked in the back lot," Sophia said, then immediately felt stupid for providing unnecessary information. "I will walk you. It is dark." Kyle said it matter-of-factly, like there was no question he would do anything else. They walked along the lit pathway that curved around the building, and Sophia searched desperately for something meaningful to say, something that would communicate the 10 years of thoughts and questions and what-ifs that had accumulated in her head. "It really was good to see you," Kyle said before she could figure out what to say. "I thought about you a lot over the years, wondered how you were doing, what you were up to. I saw your byline on a few articles online. You are doing the writing thing just like you always wanted." Sophia felt a rush of warmth that he had looked her up, followed immediately by embarrassment at the comparison between their respective levels of success. Freelance journalism is not quite as glamorous as running a billion-dollar energy company. "I never said billion." But he was grinning, not denying it either. "Jessica told me you are obscenely successful, private jets and everything." Jessica always did love to gossip. He stopped walking and turned to face her. They had reached her car, a sensible sedan that had seen better days. "But yeah, I have been fortunate. The company grew beyond anything I imagined. It is exciting but also honestly kind of terrifying sometimes. I cannot imagine you terrified of anything. Then you have a better memory of teenage me than I do. I was terrified all the time back then." He paused, and in the parking lot lights his expression was difficult to read. "I was definitely terrified of losing you." Sophia's breath caught. "Kyle, I know it was a long time ago, and I know I am the one who let us fall apart. I was so focused on adjusting to a new school, trying to fit in somewhere I did not know anyone. By the time I realized what I had lost, it felt too late to reach out, like too much time had passed. He ran his hand through his hair, messing up the perfect styling. I am sorry, Sofia. I should have fought harder for us. She stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. We were 17. We were kids. Long-distance relationships at that age almost never work. Maybe. But sometimes I think about the what-ifs, you know. What if I had tried harder? What if I had not been such a coward about staying in touch? He looked at her with such raw honesty that Sofia felt her carefully constructed defenses crumbling. What if I told you that seeing you tonight made me realize I never actually got over you? Sofia's pulse was racing. This could not be happening. People did not just show up at reunions and confess they still had feelings after 10 years. That was movie logic, not real life. You do not mean that, she said quietly. You are caught up in nostalgia. We have both changed so much since high school. Then let me get to know you now, who you are today. He stepped closer, and Sofia could feel the warmth radiating from him. I am here until Tuesday. Have dinner with me tomorrow. Every logical part of Sofia's brain was screaming at her to say no. Kyle Kensington was not just successful. He was apparently wildly, incomprehensibly wealthy. He lived in a completely different world now, one with private jets and patents and the kind of money that made people act differently. Getting involved with him was asking for heartbreak. But the way he was looking at her, the genuine hope and vulnerability in his eyes, made her throw logic out the window. Okay, she heard herself say, dinner tomorrow. His smile was brilliant. Really? You are not just saying that to be polite. I am terrible at being polite. If I did not want to have dinner with you, I would make up an excuse about my cat needing emergency grooming or something equally ridiculous. Kyle laughed, and the sound wrapped around Sofia like a warm blanket. I missed you. I did not realize how much until right now. He asked for her number, which she gave him, and he promised to text her details about dinner. Then he waited while she got in her car, waving as she pulled away. Sofia watched him in her rearview mirror until she turned the corner, and only then did she let herself acknowledge the absurd grin on her face. She drove home in a daze, walked into her apartment, and immediately called her best friend Naomi. You are calling me at 10:30 on a Saturday night, Naomi answered. This is either very good or very bad news. Kyle Kensington asked me to dinner. Silence. Then, Kyle as in your high school boyfriend Kyle, the one you have been pining over for a literal decade. I have not been pining, Sofia protested weakly. You still have his old hoodie in your closet. I have seen it. That is the definition of pining. Naomi's voice sharpened with interest. Tell me everything immediately. Sofia recounted the evening, from spotting Kyle across the ballroom to their conversation in the parking lot. Naomi listened with increasingly enthusiastic commentary. So he is not just successful, he is like billionaire successful, Naomi asked when Sofia finished. That is what Jessica said. Apparently his company is a really big deal. And he told you he never got over you. Sofia, this is literally a romance novel plot. You realize that, right? It is not. It is weird and complicated and probably a terrible idea. It is a fantastic idea, Naomi countered. You have been holding a torch for this guy forever. Maybe the universe is giving you a second chance. How often does that happen? What if it is just nostalgia for him too? What if we have dinner and realize we have nothing in common anymore? Then you will know. And you can finally move on instead of comparing every guy you date to some idealized memory of Kyle Kensington. Sofia flopped backward on her bed, nearly crushing Hemingway, who meowed in protest. I do not do that. You absolutely do that. Remember Marcus. Nice guy, good job, clearly into you. You ended things after 3 dates because he did not make you laugh the way you wanted. That is a valid reason to end a relationship. It is also exactly what you said about why you loved Kyle so much in high school, that he made you laugh like no one else. Naomi's voice softened. Look, I am not saying Kyle is your soulmate or whatever, but you owe it to yourself to find out if there is something real there or if you have just been holding onto a fantasy. Go to dinner, be open to the possibility, see what happens. After they hung up, Sofia lay in bed staring at the ceiling, turning Naomi's words over in her mind. She had spent 10 years telling herself she was over Kyle, building a life that did not include him, dating other people who never quite measured up. Maybe Naomi was right. Maybe this was her chance to finally get closure one way or another. Her phone buzzed with a text message. A known number. This is Kyle. I know it is late, but I could not sleep without making sure you were not going to change your mind about tomorrow. Please do not change your mind. Sofia smiled and saved his number. Sofia, I am not changing my mind. What time, Kyle? 7. I will pick you up. Send me your address. She hesitated only briefly before typing out her address and hitting send. This was happening. She was actually doing this. Kyle, perfect. I am really looking forward to this, Sofia. Sofia. Me too. She set her phone aside and tried to calm the butterflies doing acrobatics in her stomach. It was just dinner. Just a chance to catch up with an old friend. It did not have to mean anything more than that. Except she wanted it to mean more. She wanted it with an intensity that scared her. Sofia spent Sunday in a state of productive anxiety, finishing one article, outlining another, and trying on every piece of clothing she owned before settling on dark jeans and a soft cream-colored sweater that Naomi had once said made her look effortlessly elegant. She left her brown hair down in loose waves and kept her makeup simple. The goal was to look nice but not like she had tried too hard, a balance that felt nearly impossible to achieve. At exactly 7, her doorbell rang. Sofia took one last look in the mirror, told herself to breathe normally, and opened the door. Kyle stood in her hallway wearing dark jeans and a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking unfairly handsome and holding a small bouquet of sunflowers. "These are for you," he said, offering the flowers with an almost shy smile. "I remember you said they were your favorite. I hope that is still true." Sofia took the bouquet, touched that he remembered such a small detail from so long ago. "They are still my favorite, thank you." "You look beautiful," he said, and the simple sincerity in his voice made her blush. "You look pretty good yourself." She set the flowers on her kitchen counter and grabbed her purse. "Where are we going?" "That depends. How adventurous are you feeling?" "That is an ominous question." Kyle grinned. "I made a reservation at Lawrence, which I am told is the best restaurant in town. But honestly, I was thinking we could do something less formal. Maybe get pizza from that place we used to love and take it down to the riverfront. It is a nice night." Sofia felt her heart squeeze. Giuseppe's is still there, and they still make the best pizza in the state. Giuseppe's and the riverfront it is then. They took Kyle's car, which turned out to be a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Sofia made in several years. But Kyle drove it unself-consciously, and within minutes they were parked outside Giuseppe's, which looked exactly the same as it had 10 years ago, right down to the faded red awning and the flickering neon sign in the window. Inside, the smell of garlic and tomato sauce was so familiar that Sofia felt 17 again, sneaking in after school with Kyle to split a large pepperoni pizza and argue about whether Star Wars or Star Trek was the superior franchise. "I cannot believe this place has not changed at all," Kyle said, looking around the cramped interior with genuine delight. Some things should never change, Sofia replied. They ordered a large pizza, half pepperoni for nostalgia and half mushroom, because adult Sofia had developed a taste for vegetables. While they waited, they grabbed sodas from the cooler and stood awkwardly near the counter like teenagers again. "So tell me about your company," Sofia said. "What exactly does it do?" Kyle's face lit up in a way that made it clear he loved his work. "We developed a new type of solar panel that is significantly more efficient than traditional models and works even in low light conditions. It took years of research and development, but we finally got the technology to a place where it is commercially viable. Now we are partnering with cities and companies to implement large-scale solar installations. That is incredible. You are literally helping save the planet." He ducked his head, almost embarrassed. "I do not know about that, but yeah, it feels good to be working on something that matters, something that might actually make a difference. How did you get from studying physics in college to starting your own company?" "Lots of hard work, some lucky breaks, and a very patient business partner who understood the financial side better than I did." Kyle took a sip of his soda. "The first few years were brutal. We were barely scraping by, maxing out credit cards, sleeping in the office. There were so many times I almost gave up. But you did not. No. I had this stubborn belief that the technology would work if we could just get it right, and eventually we did. We got a patent which attracted investors, which led to our first major contract. After that, things snowballed." Their pizza arrived and they carried it down to the riverfront park, finding a bench with a view of the water. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. They ate directly from the box, and Sofia felt more relaxed than she had in months. "Your turn," Kyle said. "Tell me about the writing. Are you doing what you dreamed about?" Sofia considered how to answer that honestly. "Yes and no. I am writing, which is what I always wanted, but freelance journalism is competitive and inconsistent. Some months I have more work than I can handle. Other months I am pitching constantly and getting rejected. It is not exactly the glamorous reporter life I imagined in high school. But you are good at it. I read some of your articles. The one about urban farming initiatives was fascinating. You really did look me up." "Of course I did." He turned to face her more fully. "Sofia, I have thought about you so many times over the years, wondered what you were doing, if you were happy, if you ever thought about me." "I did," she admitted quietly. "I thought about you probably more than I should have. Why did we never reconnect?" "I mean, really. We live in the age of social media. We could have found each other anytime." Sofia traced a pattern on the pizza box lid. "I sent you a friend request on Facebook a couple years ago. You never accepted it." Kyle's expression shifted to confusion. "What? When?" "2 years ago, maybe." "Your profile is private, so I could not see anything, but I sent a request." He pulled out his phone, scrolling quickly. "Sofia, I barely use Facebook. I think I check it maybe twice a year. Let me see." He tapped several times, then made a frustrated noise. "I have 73 pending friend requests, including one from you dated almost exactly 2 years ago. I am so sorry. I had no idea." "It is okay. I figured you just were not interested in reconnecting." That could not be further from the truth. He accepted the request right then, showing her the screen. "There. Done. Now you can see all my boring photos of solar panels and conference rooms." Sofia laughed despite herself. "Sounds thrilling." They finished the pizza as the sky darkened and the first stars began to appear. Kyle told her about living in Seattle, about the challenges of scaling a company from a handful of employees to hundreds. Sofia told him about the articles she was most proud of, the editors she loved working with, the dream of eventually writing longer-form investigative pieces. Why Seattle? Sofia asked. Why not stay on the East Coast? The tech scene there was exploding when I moved. It felt like the right place to be for what I wanted to do. Plus, I needed distance from everything familiar. After my dad died, I needed to be somewhere that did not remind me of him everywhere I looked. Sofia touched his arm instinctively. Kyle, I am so sorry. I did not know about your dad. It was 6 years ago. Heart attack. He was only 53. Kyle's voice was tight. It happened really fast. One day he was fine, the next he was gone. It made me realize how short life is, how you cannot take anything for granted. Is that why you started the company? Partly. My dad always talked about wanting to do something meaningful with his career, but he spent 30 years in middle management at a company he did not care about because it was safe and paid the bills. I did not want that to be my story. I wanted to take the risk, go after something I believed in. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the lights reflect off the water. Sofia felt the walls she had built around her heart beginning to crumble. This was the Kyle she remembered, the one who thought deeply about things, who cared about making a difference, who shared his vulnerabilities without shame. Can I ask you something? Kyle said eventually. Of course. Why are you single? He held up a hand quickly. I do not mean that in a judgmental way. I just cannot believe someone has not snatched you up. You are smart, talented, beautiful, funny. What am I missing? Sofia laughed, but it came out a little bitter. I could ask you the same question. Unless you are not single, in which case this dinner is wildly inappropriate. I am very single. Serial dating disaster, actually. According to my sister, I am too picky and work too much. Okay, but you have an excuse. You were building an empire. I was just writing articles and apparently sabotaging perfectly good relationships. Why were you sabotaging them? Sofia picked at a loose thread on her jeans. Naomi, my best friend, thinks I have been comparing everyone to you, to some idealized memory of what we had. Have you been? Maybe, probably. She looked at him. Is that pathetic? If it is, then I am equally pathetic because I have done the same thing. Kyle shifted closer on the bench. Every woman I have dated, I kept thinking about how you used to make me laugh, or how easy it was to talk to you, or how you understood me in this way no one else ever has. And then, I would feel guilty for not being present, for comparing them to a relationship that ended when we were kids. We were not kids, teenagers but not kids. Fair point. He was close enough now that Sofia could feel the warmth of his arm against hers. Sofia, I am not here because of nostalgia. I mean, yes, I loved who you were then, but tonight, getting to know who you are now. I like this version of you even more. Sofia's breath caught. Kyle, I know this is fast. I know I live in Seattle and you are here and our lives are completely different, but I cannot shake the feeling that this is a second chance. That the universe or fate or whatever put that reunion invitation in both our mailboxes for a reason. He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. Tell me you feel it too. Tell me I am not imagining this. She looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. He was looking at her with such hopeful intensity that she could not have lied if she wanted to. You are not imagining it, she said softly. I feel it too. Kyle exhaled like he had been holding his breath. Then, slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, he leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, like they were both remembering and discovering each other at the same time. But then, Sofia's hand came up to curl around the back of his neck, and Kyle's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing harder, Kyle rested his forehead against hers. That was even better than I remembered. We were pretty terrible at kissing in high school. True. Lots of accidental nose collisions. Sofia laughed, and Kyle kissed her again, softer this time but no less affecting. They stayed at the riverfront until nearly midnight, talking about everything and nothing, stealing kisses that made Sofia's head spin. When Kyle finally drove her home, he walked her to her door like a perfect gentleman, kissed her goodnight like he was trying to memorize the taste of her, and made her promise to spend the next day with him. "I leave Tuesday morning," he reminded her. "I want to spend every possible moment with you before then. What about your work? Do you not have meetings or calls or billionaire things to attend to? I will reschedule. They can wait." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You cannot." After he left, Sofia floated into her apartment in a daze. She had just spent the evening kissing Kyle Kensington, who was not only her first love but also apparently a literal billionaire who just told her he had never gotten over her. It felt surreal in the best possible way. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Kyle, I know I just left, but I already miss you. Tomorrow cannot come soon enough." Sofia smiled so wide her cheeks hurt. "Sofia, you are ridiculous. Go to sleep." "Kyle, only if you promise you are not going to wake up tomorrow and decide this was all a mistake." "Sofia, I promise. This is not a mistake." "Kyle, good, because I am already planning our entire day tomorrow. Be ready at 9. Wear comfortable shoes." "Sofia, that is ominous." "Kyle, trust me." "Sofia, I do." She sent the text before she could overthink it, and it was true. She did trust him, which was both terrifying and exhilarating. Monday morning arrived with bright sunshine and Sofia's nervous energy at an all-time high. She dressed in jeans, sneakers, and a light jacket, having no idea what Kyle had planned but trusting his instruction about comfortable shoes. He picked her up at exactly 9 wearing jeans and a navy blue Henley, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him. In his hand was a travel mug of coffee which he handed to her. "Soy milk, 1 sugar, right?" Sofia accepted the coffee, touched that he remembered her order from a decade ago. "You have a scary good memory. Only for things that matter." They drove out of the city, and Sofia watched the landscape change from urban streets to rolling countryside. Kyle would not tell her where they were going, just grinned mysteriously whenever she asked. Eventually, he turned down a narrow road that led to a state park Sofia had not visited since high school. He parked near a trailhead, and suddenly Sofia understood. "The waterfall trail," she said. "We hiked this junior year. It took us 3 hours because we kept stopping to take ridiculous photos and debate whether hot dogs were sandwiches." "They are not sandwiches. They are hot dogs. It is its own category." Kyle laughed and grabbed a backpack from his trunk. "I am not relitigating this argument. Come on." They hiked the trail at an easy pace, falling into the kind of comfortable conversation that felt effortless. Kyle told her about some of the places his work had taken him, from Norway to Japan to Australia. Sofia talked about the local stories she had covered, the people she had interviewed, the way a good story could change someone's perspective on the world. "You ever want to leave?" Kyle asked as they climbed a steeper section of trail. "Move to a bigger city with more opportunities?" Sofia considered the question carefully. "Sometimes. New York or D.C. would probably be better for my career, but I love it here. My family is here, my friends. There is something about knowing a place deeply, understanding its history and its people. That matters in journalism." "That makes sense." "What about you? Do you love Seattle?" "I respect it," Kyle said thoughtfully. "It has been good to me, good for the company, but I do not know if I love it. It has always felt temporary somehow, like I am waiting for the next chapter to start." They reached the waterfall an hour later, and it was just as beautiful as Sofia remembered. Water cascaded down a rocky cliff face into a clear pool below, surrounded by lush green forest. The sound was soothing, almost meditative. Kyle set down his backpack and pulled out a blanket, spreading it on a flat area near the water. Then he unpacked an elaborate picnic, complete with sandwiches, fruit, cheese, and chocolate. "When did you have time to arrange all this?" Sofia asked, amazed. "I have an assistant who is very good at her job and owed me a favor." He handed her a sandwich. "Plus, I wanted to impress you. Consider me impressed." They ate lunch surrounded by the sound of falling water and bird calls, and Sofia felt a contentment she had not experienced in years. "This," she thought, "this is what I have been missing. Can I ask you something serious?" Kyle said eventually. "Sure." "What happens after tomorrow? I do not want this to end, Sofia. I do not want to go back to Seattle and have us fall out of touch again." Sofia's heart squeezed. She had been trying not to think about the logistics, content to live in the moment. But Kyle was right to bring it up. They needed to figure this out. "I do not want that either," she admitted. "But I also do not know how to make this work. You live on the other side of the country. You run a massive company. I have my life and my career here. What if I came back more often? Or you visited Seattle? We could make it work if we both wanted to." "Long-distance relationships are hard, Kyle. We tried it before and it did not work out. We were 17. We are different people now." He reached for her hand. "I am not saying it would be easy, but I think we owe it to ourselves to try. Do you not?" Sofia wanted to say yes immediately, but the practical part of her brain was raising objections. "Your life is so different from mine. You have private jets and multiple homes and probably an army of people whose job it is to manage your schedule. I am a freelance writer who sometimes cannot afford to replace my broken dishwasher. We are not exactly operating on the same level." Kyle frowned. "You think I care about that?" "I think it matters whether you care or not. We live in completely different worlds now." "Sofia, look at me." He waited until she met his eyes. "The money does not matter. Yes, I am fortunate that the company has been successful, but that is not who I am. I am still the guy who spends his weekends hiking and eating pizza. The guy who cares about renewable energy and making a difference. The guy who has been in love with you since he was 16 years old." Sofia's breath caught. "You do not mean that." "I absolutely mean it. I never stopped loving you, Sofia. Not when I moved away, not when we lost touch, not in the 10 years we have been apart. You were always the one." He squeezed her hand. "And if you need me to prove it, I will. I will come back every weekend. I will move back here if that is what it takes. I will do whatever you need because losing you again is not an option." Tears pricked at Sofia's eyes. "Kyle, I cannot ask you to move. Your company is in Seattle. Your whole life is there. My company has offices in 12 cities. We are expanding all the time. I could easily relocate to the East Coast office." He cupped her face in his hands. "You are not asking me to do anything. I am offering because I want to. Because a life without you in it is not a life I am interested in living. This is crazy. We have spent 2 days together. 2 days now. But I have loved you for 12 years. That is not nothing." Sofia felt her carefully constructed objections crumbling. "I loved you too. I never stopped either." Kyle's face broke into the most brilliant smile she had ever seen. "Then we will figure it out, together, whatever it takes." He kissed her, and Sofia let herself fall into it, let herself believe that maybe this could actually work. When they broke apart, she was crying and laughing at the same time. "This is insane," she said. "The best things usually are." They spent the rest of the afternoon at the waterfall, talking through possibilities and logistics. Kyle showed her his calendar, proving he could realistically fly back every other weekend. Sofia admitted she could work from anywhere with internet, making visits to Seattle feasible. It would not be easy, but it felt possible in a way that made Sofia's heart soar with hope. As they hiked back to the car in the late afternoon sun, Kyle said, "Come to Seattle with me." Sofia stopped walking. "What? Tomorrow? Come with me. Stay for a week, see where I live, meet my team. See if you can picture yourself there sometimes." He looked nervous, asking, "I know it is fast, but we have already lost so much time. I do not want to waste another day." "Kyle, I have deadlines, articles due. I cannot just drop everything and fly across the country." "Can you not? You said yourself you can work from anywhere. Bring your laptop, right from my place. I will give you space and quiet and whatever you need." He took both her hands. "Please, Sofia, let me show you my life. Let me prove this can work." Every practical objection died on Sofia's lips as she looked at his hopeful face. This was crazy. Absolutely insane. She had known him for 2 days after 10 years apart, and he was asking her to fly to Seattle with less than 24 hours' notice. But Naomi's words echoed in her head. "How often does the universe give you a second chance?" "Okay," Sofia heard herself say. "I will come with you." Kyle picked her up and spun her around, laughing with pure joy. "Really? You are not joking?" "I am completely serious and possibly having a mental breakdown, but yes. I will come to Seattle. You are not going to regret this. I promise." That evening, Sofia packed a suitcase while video chatting with Naomi, who was oscillating between excitement and concern. "This is either the most romantic thing ever or a complete disaster," Naomi said, watching Sofia throw clothes into a bag. "I cannot decide which." "Why not both? You are flying across the country with a man you have known for 2 days. I have known him for 12 years, technically." "You knew him 12 years ago. People change." "He is still Kyle," Sofia insisted, holding up 2 shirts. "Blue or green, green, and you are evading my point. What if you get to Seattle and realize you have nothing in common? What if his life is so different from yours that you feel completely out of place? What if he is secretly terrible and you just have not seen it yet?" Sofia set down the shirts. "What if it is perfect? What if this is exactly what I have been waiting for my whole life? Do I not owe it to myself to find out?" Naomi's expression softened. "Of course you do. I am just worried about you. I do not want to see you get hurt. I know, and I appreciate that. But I have to do this, Naomi. I have to know. Then go, have an amazing time, fall stupidly in love. But also keep your eyes open, okay? Make sure this is real and not just fantasy." After they hung up, Sofia finished packing and emailed her editors to let them know she would be working remotely for the next week. Then she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with possibilities and what-ifs. Her phone buzzed. "Kyle, I cannot sleep. I am too excited about tomorrow." "Sofia, me neither." "Are you sure about this? It is not too late to change your mind." "Kyle, I have never been more sure about anything. Pack something nice. I am taking you to my favorite restaurant." "Sofia, how nice are we talking?" "Kyle, nice enough that I can show you off and everyone will wonder how I got so lucky." "Sofia, you are a billionaire." "I think they will wonder how I got so lucky." "Kyle, perspective is everything. Get some sleep. I will pick you up at 6. Our flight leaves at 8. "Sofia, private jet." "Kyle, is that okay? I promise it is not as weird as it sounds." "Sofia, Kyle, I have never been on a private jet. I do not even know what the etiquette is." "Kyle, the etiquette is you show up and I make sure you are comfortable. That is it. Nothing weird, I promise." "Sofia, okay, see you at 6. "Kyle, Sofia, Sofia. Yeah, Kyle, thank you for taking a chance on this, on us." "Sofia, thank you for giving me a reason to." She set her phone aside and finally fell asleep, her dreams full of waterfalls and coffee with soy milk, and the way Kyle looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. Kyle arrived at 5:55 the next morning looking unfairly awake and cheerful. He loaded Sofia's suitcase into his car and handed her another perfectly made coffee. "You are going to spoil me," she said, accepting the cup gratefully. "That is the plan." The private jet was surreal. Sofia had prepared herself for something ostentatious, but the plane was actually understated and comfortable, more like a nice living room that happened to have wings. Kyle introduced her to the pilot and crew with casual friendliness, then settled into a leather seat beside her. "Okay?" he asked as the plane began to taxi. Completely surreal, but okay. Sofia looked around, taking in details she could describe to Naomi later. "Do you fly like this all the time?" "For work, yes. It is more efficient than commercial flights when I am managing multiple cities. But it is not something I take for granted." He reached for her hand. "I grew up solidly middle class, Sofia. My dad worked in an office, my mom was a teacher. The money is still weird for me sometimes. How do you even process becoming this successful?" "I mean, 5 years ago you were maxing out credit cards. Now you have a private jet." Kyle considered the question thoughtfully. "Honestly, I try not to think about it too much. The work is what matters, the impact we are making. The money is just a tool that lets us do more." He smiled at her. "Though I will admit, it is nice to be able to fly the woman I love across the country without her having to deal with security lines." Sofia's heart did a little flip at the casual way he said "the woman I love," like it was the most natural thing in the world. The flight took about 5 hours, during which Kyle worked on his laptop, and Sofia outlined an article about renewable energy that she was suddenly very inspired to write. They talked periodically, comfortable in the quiet spaces between conversation. When they landed in Seattle, a car was waiting to take them to Kyle's place. Sofia watched the city unfold outside her window, all modern architecture and green spaces and water views. "It is beautiful," she said. "Wait until you see the house." Kyle's house turned out to be a stunning modern home in an upscale neighborhood with panoramic views of Puget Sound. It was all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, decorated in comfortable neutrals with splashes of color. "This is where you live?" Sofia asked, standing in the main living area and turning in a slow circle. "This is where I sleep and occasionally eat takeout at 2 in the morning while reviewing contracts," Kyle corrected. "I would not say I really live anywhere. I am always traveling." He showed her around, pointing out the guest room where she could work, the kitchen that was criminally underused, the deck with the incredible view. Everything was beautiful and clearly expensive, but it also felt oddly impersonal, like a very nice hotel. "It does not really look like you," Sofia said carefully. "I know. I hired a designer because I had no idea what I was doing and she gave me this." He gestured around vaguely. "It is fine. It is just a house." Sofia walked to the windows, looking out at the water. "You should have more photographs, personal things, stuff that makes it feel like home." "I do not really have that much personal stuff. Most of my things from before are still in storage back east." He came to stand beside her. "Maybe you could help me make it feel more like home." She looked at him. "Is that why you brought me here, to play interior decorator?" "I brought you here because I want you to see every part of my life, the good, the boring, the parts that need work." He turned her to face him. "I want you to know exactly what you would be signing up for if you decide to make this relationship work." "What am I signing up for?" "A lot of travel, weird hours, industry events that are painfully boring. A boyfriend who is still figuring out how to balance work and life and often gets it wrong." He tucked her hair behind her ear. "But also someone who will love you with everything he has, who will make time for you even when it seems impossible, who thinks you are the most incredible person he has ever met." Sofia rose up on her toes and kissed him. "When do I get to meet your team?" "Tomorrow. I thought we could have tonight to ourselves. There is this restaurant on the waterfront that I think you will love." The restaurant was as incredible as Kyle promised, all fresh seafood and local ingredients and views of the harbor. They sat at a quiet corner table, and Sofia felt herself relaxing into the evening, into the possibility of this new chapter. "Tell me about your family," Kyle said over dinner. "Your parents, your sister. I want to know everything I missed." Sofia filled him in on the last 10 years of her family history. Her younger sister Emma was in graduate school studying marine biology. Her parents had retired last year and promptly bought an RV to travel the country. They were currently somewhere in Arizona, living their best nomadic life. "They sound amazing," Kyle said. "They are. What about you? You mentioned a sister earlier." "Kara. She is 3 years younger, works in nonprofit fundraising in Boston. She is going to lose her mind when I tell her about you." He grinned. "She has been nagging me to date someone real for years, by which she means someone who is not just interested in my money." "Has that been a problem?" "A few times. You learn to be cautious about people's motivations." He reached across the table for her hand. "Which is one of many reasons I am so grateful for you. You loved me when I was just a broke physics student with big dreams. I know your feelings are not about what I have now." "I loved you when you had that terrible haircut sophomore year," Sofia said. "The one where you tried to cut it yourself and ended up looking like you got attacked by lawn mower," Kyle groaned. "I thought we agreed to never speak of that again. I have photographic evidence. I could be persuaded to share it with your employees." "That sounds like blackmail." "Think of it as insurance. Behave yourself and your dignified CEO image remains intact." They laughed together, and Sofia felt the last of her reservations melting away. This was right. They were right. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, holding hands and talking about nothing important. The air was cool and smelled like salt water, and the city lights reflected off the dark water in shimmering patterns. "I am really glad you are here," Kyle said quietly. "Me too." "What are you thinking about?" Sofia considered the question. "I am thinking about how different this is from what I imagined my life would look like. 3 days ago, I was sitting in my apartment wondering if I should even go to the reunion. Now I am in Seattle with you and everything feels possible. Good possible or scary possible. Both. Definitely both." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "But mostly good." Kyle kissed her, soft and sweet, and Sofia let herself fall into the moment completely. The rest of the week passed in a blur of wonderful. Kyle brought her to his office, a sleek building downtown where his employees clearly respected and liked him. Sofia met his business partner, Marcus Reed, who spent 20 minutes telling her embarrassing stories about Kyle's early days in the company. She worked on her articles from Kyle's home office while he attended meetings, and they spent evenings exploring the city together. "Your team really cares about you," Sofia said one night over Thai takeout. "Not just as a boss, but as a person. I try to take care of them. We have been through a lot together, building this from nothing." He twirled noodles around his fork. "Does that sound too much like a CEO giving a press statement?" "A little. But it is also clearly true." On her 4th day in Seattle, Kyle surprised her with a trip to one of his solar installations. They drove an hour outside the city to a massive field covered in solar panels, all gleaming in the afternoon sun. "This is what we do," Kyle said, walking her through the rows of panels. "This installation provides enough clean energy to power about 3,000 homes. 5 years ago, this was just an idea in my head that everyone said was impossible." Sofia looked at the endless expanse of technology, the tangible result of Kyle's vision and work, and felt a surge of pride. "You did this. You actually changed the world. We are trying." There is still so much more to do, but you are doing it. That is what matters. That night, lying in Kyle's arms in his bed because they had both given up the pretense of her sleeping in the guest room, Sofia said, "I need to go home soon. I have an interview scheduled for Monday that I cannot do remotely." She felt Kyle tense. "I know. I have been trying not to think about it. We need to figure out the actual logistics. When will I see you again?" "Next weekend. I will fly out Friday night, stay until Sunday evening. The following week I have to be in New York for meetings, so maybe you could meet me there. We could have a few days together." Sofia did some mental math. That is sustainable short term, but you cannot fly across the country every weekend forever. That is exhausting. "I do not care. I will do whatever it takes, Kyle." She propped herself up to look at him. "You mentioned relocating to the East Coast office. Were you serious about that?" "Completely serious. I have been thinking about it all week." He brushed hair away from her face. "The Boston office is growing fast. They could use more hands on leadership. It would not be immediate. I would need a few months to transition things here, but yes, I want to move back east. I want to be closer to you. That is a huge decision. You cannot make it just for me. I am not making it just for you. I am making it for us, for the life I want to build with you." He kissed her forehead. "Sofia, I have spent 5 years building a company. It has been incredible and fulfilling and everything I dreamed of. But it is not enough on its own. I want more. I want you. I want a relationship that is not squeezed into whatever time is left over after work. I want to come home to someone I love and who loves me back. I want the life we should have had 10 years ago." Tears stung Sofia's eyes. "I want that too. Then we will make it happen. However long it takes, whatever we need to do, I am all in, Sofia, completely." She kissed him, pouring every ounce of love and hope and certainty she felt into it. When they broke apart, she was definitely crying. "Happy tears," she assured him. "Definitely happy tears." They spent her last day in Seattle being determinedly normal. Breakfast at a diner, walking through Pike Place Market, visiting a bookstore where they debated the merits of various novels. It felt like practice for a future they were both imagining, a glimpse of what their life together could look like. At the airport the next morning, saying goodbye was harder than Sofia expected. 2 weeks, Kyle said, holding her close. "I will be there in 2 weeks, and we will talk every day." "Every day," Sofia agreed. "I love you. I know we have not said it enough, so I am saying it now. I love you, Sofia Bennett. I have always loved you. I love you too, so much." One more kiss, and then Sofia forced herself to board the plane. She watched Seattle disappear below her, and let herself cry a little, already missing Kyle, but feeling more hopeful than she had in years. The next 2 weeks tested them in ways Sofia had not anticipated. Kyle's schedule was insane, with back-to-back meetings and a crisis with a supplier that required his constant attention. They managed phone calls and video chats, but it was not the same as being together. Sofia threw herself into work, writing 3 articles and pitching 2 more, trying to keep busy and not watch the clock. But they made it work. Kyle sent her flowers with notes that made her laugh. Sofia emailed him articles she thought he would find interesting. They fell asleep on video calls, just wanting to see each other even when they were too tired to talk. When Friday finally arrived and Kyle texted that he had landed, Sofia practically ran to her car. She picked him up at the airport, and the moment she saw him walking out of arrivals, everything else fell away. "You are here," she said, throwing her arms around him. "I am here." He lifted her off her feet, holding her tight. "God, I missed you." They barely made it back to her apartment before they were kissing desperately, making up for 2 weeks apart. Later, lying tangled together in her bed with Hemingway glaring at them from the doorway, Kyle said, "I have news." "Good news." "I think so." I talked to my board this week. I am officially transitioning to head up our East Coast operations. I will be based out of Boston starting in 3 months. Sofia sat up, her heart racing. Kyle, are you serious? Completely. Boston is only a 2-hour drive from here. I can commute, or we can figure out something else, but the point is I will be close. We can actually have a real relationship. He pulled her back down beside him. I know 3 months seems like forever, but it is not that long, and in the meantime, I will visit every chance I get. What about Seattle? What about the life you built there? I will still travel there regularly, and honestly, Sofia, I never loved it that much. It was convenient for business, but it was never home. He cupped her face. You are home. Wherever you are, that is where I want to be. Sofia kissed him, overwhelmed with emotion. I cannot believe you are doing this. Believe it. This is happening. We are happening. The next 3 months were a lesson in patience and creative scheduling. Kyle visited as often as he could, sometimes just for a night, sometimes for long weekends. Sofia flew to Seattle twice more, and once they met in San Francisco where Kyle had meetings and Sofia could visit a friend. It was not perfect, but it was theirs, and they made it work. Kyle officially moved to Boston in late spring, buying a beautiful brownstone with enough space for an office and a guest room for when Sofia stayed over, which quickly became most nights. The transition was not seamless. Kyle worked brutal hours getting the Boston office up to speed, and Sofia struggled with feeling like she was always waiting for him to have time for her. They had their first real fight on a Tuesday evening when Kyle canceled dinner plans for the 3rd time that week because of a work emergency. I understand your job is demanding, Sofia said, trying to keep her voice level, but I need to know I am a priority too. I cannot always come second to your company. You are not second, Kyle insisted, looking exhausted. You are the most important thing in my life. But I have responsibilities, Sofia, people depending on me. I cannot just ignore that. I am not asking you to ignore anything. I am asking you to find balance, to keep the promises you make to me. They stood in his kitchen, the tension thick between them, and Sofia wondered if this was it, if the reality of their lives was going to destroy what they had built. Then Kyle said quietly, "You are right. I am sorry. I have been so focused on making this transition work that I have not been present with you. That is not fair." Sofia felt her anger deflate. I know you are under a lot of pressure. I am trying to be understanding. No, you should not have to just be understanding. You should be able to count on me. He crossed to her, taking her hands. Let me make this right. What do you need from me? They talked for hours that night, really talked about expectations and boundaries, and how to build a life together that honored both their careers and their relationship. It was hard and sometimes uncomfortable, but they came out the other side stronger. Summer turned to fall, and their relationship deepened. Kyle met Sofia's parents when they returned from their RV adventure, and they loved him immediately. Sofia met Kara, Kyle's sister, who pulled her aside and said, I have never seen my brother this happy. Thank you for that. One evening in October, sitting on Kyle's couch with her laptop and a cup of tea while Kyle reviewed contracts beside her, Sofia realized this was exactly what she wanted. Not the fancy house or the money, though those were nice, but this comfortable domesticity, the quiet moments of being together while doing separate things, knowing he was right there if she needed him. What are you smiling about? Kyle asked, looking up from his work. Just thinking about how far we have come. A year ago I was agonizing over whether to go to our reunion. Now look at us. Kyle set aside his laptop and pulled her close. Look at us, he agreed. Sofia, I want to ask you something. Okay, move in with me, officially. Not just most nights, but all nights. This is your home too. Sofia's heart swelled. You want me to move in. I want you to move in. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want Hemingway to claim half my closet as his territory. I want to build this life with you for real. Yes, Sofia said without hesitation. Absolutely yes. They kissed, and it felt like another beginning, another step forward into the future they were creating together. Sofia moved in officially in November, bringing her mismatched furniture and overflowing bookshelves and Hemingway, who immediately decided Kyle's favorite chair was now his. They learned each other's domestic quirks, how Sofia left tea mugs everywhere and Kyle was pathologically incapable of putting his shoes in the closet. They learned to compromise and communicate and choose each other every single day. On a snowy evening in December, exactly 1 year after the reunion that had started everything, Kyle came home from work carrying a mysterious bag and wearing a secretive smile. "What are you up to?" Sofia asked suspiciously. "Get your coat. We are going out." "Kyle, it is freezing." "I was planning to stay in with a book and ignore the weather. Trust me, you will want to see this." Reluctantly, Sofia bundled up and followed him to the car. He drove them back to their hometown, through streets decorated with holiday lights, until he pulled up to their old high school. "Why are we at the high school?" Sofia asked. "Just come with me." He led her around to the football field, where snow was gently falling and the bleachers were empty. They walked to the exact spot where they had shared their first kiss so many years ago. "You remember?" Kyle asked. "Of course I remember. You were so nervous you almost missed." "I did not almost miss. I was aiming for the corner of your mouth for dramatic effect," Sofia laughed. "Sure you were." Kyle took both her hands, suddenly serious. "Sofia, that day I kissed you for the first time, I thought I was the luckiest person alive. Getting to have you in my life, even for a little while, felt like a gift I did not deserve. When we lost touch, I told myself it was for the best, that we were too young, that we would have grown apart anyway. But I never stopped thinking about you, never stopped wondering what if." "Kyle," Sofia said softly, her heart starting to race. "Then the universe gave us the most incredible second chance. You showed up at that reunion, and it was like no time had passed at all. Like we were always meant to find our way back to each other." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Sofia Bennett, I have loved you for 12 years. I want to love you for 12 more and 12 more after that, and however many we get. Will you marry me?" He opened the box to reveal a beautiful ring, elegant and simple, exactly Sofia's style. She stared at it, then at Kyle's hopeful face, and realized she was crying. "Yes," she managed to say. "Yes, of course yes." Kyle slipped the ring onto her finger, and then he was lifting her up and spinning her around, both of them laughing and crying in the falling snow. When he set her down, he kissed her with such tenderness that Sofia felt like her heart might burst. "I cannot believe we are doing this," she said. "Believe it. You are stuck with me now. Good. That is exactly where I want to be." They stood there for a while longer, holding each other in the place where it all began, neither of them caring about the cold. Eventually, Kyle pulled her toward the car. "Come on, future Mrs. Kensington. I made reservations at Giuseppe's. You did not." "I absolutely did. I thought we should celebrate where it all started." They drove to Giuseppe's and ate pizza and laughed about how surreal their lives had become. Kyle called his sister, who screamed so loudly they had to hold the phone away from their ears. Sofia called Naomi, who yelled, "I told you it was a romance novel plot." Later that night, back in their home, Sofia sat on the couch with her hand extended, admiring the ring. "It is perfect," she said for the 10th time. "You are perfect," Kyle countered, pulling her close. "What happens now?" "Now we plan a wedding and build a life and argue about whether hot dogs are sandwiches. They are not. Agree to disagree." He kissed her temple. I love you so much, Sofia. I love you too. Always have, always will. They got married the following summer in an outdoor ceremony by the river, surrounded by friends and family. Sofia wore a simple white dress and carried sunflowers. Kyle cried during his vows, promising to love her through every chapter, every challenge, every joy that life brought them. Sofia promised the same, her voice steady and sure. Their wedding was not ostentatious despite Kyle's resources. It was intimate and beautiful, focused on what mattered most. Two people who had found their way back to each other, choosing to build a life together. The years that followed were not always easy. Kyle's company continued to grow, bringing new pressures and demands on his time. Sofia's career took off when she landed a position as a staff writer for a major publication, her investigative pieces winning awards and recognition. They navigated busy schedules and travel, and the normal challenges of marriage with patience and humor, and an unshakable commitment to each other. 2 years after their wedding, they welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Emma after Sofia's sister. Kyle proved to be an incredibly hands-on father, mastering diaper changes and midnight feedings with the same focused intensity he brought to everything else. Sofia watched him rock their daughter to sleep while humming off key lullabies and fell in love with him all over again. Their son arrived 2 years later, and suddenly, their beautiful brownstone was full of chaos and laughter and tiny shoes everywhere. Kyle reduced his work hours, determined not to miss the important moments. Sofia shifted to freelancing again, wanting flexibility to be present for their kids. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Sofia found Kyle sitting in their backyard watching their children play in the sprinkler. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, settling into the chair beside him. "Just how impossibly lucky I am. 5 years ago, I went to a high school reunion thinking I would make small talk and leave early. Instead, I found you again. I got everything I ever wanted." Sofia reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. "We got really lucky, did we not? The luckiest." He turned to look at her. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been if you had not gone to the reunion, if I had decided my schedule was too busy?" "Sometimes. But I think we were always going to find our way back to each other. Maybe not then, maybe not that way, but eventually." She squeezed his hand. "Some things are just meant to be." "Some things are definitely meant to be," Kyle agreed. Their daughter ran over, soaking wet and demanding they come play in the sprinkler. Their son toddled after her, laughing with pure joy. Kyle and Sofia looked at each other, had a wordless conversation, and then stood up together. "Last one in has to make dinner," Kyle said, already running. Sofia chased after him, their children shrieking with delight, and thought about how her life had unfolded in ways she never could have imagined. She had gone to a reunion hoping to prove she was fine on her own, and instead had rediscovered her first love. She had been afraid their lives were too different, their paths incompatible, but they had built something beautiful anyway. The billionaire at the reunion had turned out to be her old love who still loved her, who had never stopped loving her, who chose her every single day. And she chose him right back, over and over again. Years continued to pass, bringing graduations and career milestones and quiet evenings reading together while their kids did homework at the kitchen table. Kyle's company went public, making him unfathomably wealthy, but he stayed grounded, focused on the work and the impact rather than the money. Sofia published a book of her collected articles, dedicating it to Kyle with the simple inscription, "To my first love and my forever love." On their 20th wedding anniversary, Sofia found herself back at the Riverside Grand Hotel for another high school reunion, this one marking their 30th year since graduation. She and Kyle walked into the ballroom hand in hand, their children mostly grown now, off at college and building their own lives. "I cannot believe it has been 20 years, Kyle said, looking around at their former classmates, all of them older but recognizably themselves. "Best 20 years of my life," Sofia said. "Mine too." They spent the evening reconnecting with old friends, telling the story of how they got back together to anyone who asked. Jessica Martinez, still gorgeous and now running her own marketing firm, pulled Sofia aside at one point. "You know, I saw it that night," Jessica said. "The way Kyle looked at you when he first walked in, like you were the only person in the room, I thought then that you two were going to end up together." "You did. Absolutely. That kind of love does not just disappear. It might get buried or forgotten, but it is always there, waiting for the right moment to resurface." Jessica smiled. "I am really happy for you both." Later, standing by the windows overlooking the river, Kyle wrapped his arms around Sofia from behind. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For showing up that night 10 years ago, for taking a chance on us, for building this incredible life with me, for everything." He turned her to face him. "I love you more today than I did when we got married, more than I did at that first reunion. Every day with you is better than the last." Sofia kissed him, this man who had been her first love and her last love and every love in between. "I love you too, always and forever." Around them, their former classmates celebrated and reminisced, but Sofia and Kyle only had eyes for each other. They had started here in this room, finding each other again after years apart. Now they stood together, 2 decades of marriage behind them and a lifetime still ahead, proof that some stories did get happy endings. Some loves were strong enough to survive time and distance, and every obstacle life threw at them. Some people were lucky enough to get a second chance with their first love. Sofia and Kyle had gotten that chance, and they had built something extraordinary from it. As they left the reunion that night, walking hand in hand to their car, Sofia looked up at the stars and felt nothing but gratitude. She had seen a billionaire at her reunion, completely unaware that her old love would love her still. But Kyle had loved her, had never stopped loving her, and that love had transformed both their lives in the most beautiful way possible. They drove home to their life, their family, their future, and it was absolutely perfect.